What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the RapChat, where today we're going to talk about how soon can the Raptors actually win another championship. So before we hop into the video, guys, make sure you're liking, commenting, and subscribing if you want to. I don't like comment and subscribe a lot of people's videos, so just don't feel any pressure. It'd be great if you did. Don't get me wrong. But it's your choice ultimately, so I'm not gonna beg for it. And we also have social media. Always check out the social media: Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Follow those. We post clips of the show. We post Raptors content. Everything your heart probably desires. So today, guys, we're gonna talk about when can the Toronto Raptors really win another championship. Now, you go back to the 2019 year, and so much had to go right for that team. Not only did we have one of the best built rosters in the league, but a lot of things went right, especially in the playoffs. There's Kawhi Leonard's shot in the second round against Philly. There was the fact that Klay Thompson and Kevin Durant got hurt in the finals. You can debate whether or not they would have won or lost anyway. I think they would have won, but that's bias. But we got lucky with that. It made the finals a lot easier on us. And we had Kawhi Leonard, one of the best top 75 players of all time, according to whoever voted for that, and I agree. So how soon can the Toronto Raptors really win another championship? Unfortunately, I think it might be a little while. So before we can talk about how close this current team is to winning a championship, let's go back to how the first Toronto Raptors championship team was constructed. In 2009, we drafted DeMar DeRozan 9th overall in the NBA draft. And he became a cornerstone pretty quick for the Toronto Raptors. He gave the Raptors their first real, he was a big reason why the Raptors started winning basketball games again. For a while there, we were at the bottom of the league. We had the first overall pick a couple years prior. We took Bargnani. After DeMar DeRozan, the next big move was drafting Jonas Valanciunas in the 2011 NBA draft. We got him 5th overall, and he ended up playing a year back overseas until he actually came over to the NBA. And after Valanciunas, we had to acquire our boy Kyle Lowry from the Houston Rockets for a 2013 first-round pick, which ended up being Steven Adams, and a guy named Gary Forbes, who most people have probably never heard of, including myself, besides this trade. So that ended up being the cornerstone of the Toronto Raptors: Kyle Lowry, Jonas Valanciunas, and DeMar DeRozan. And from then on, for the next 6-7 years, that was the core group that was winning us basketball games. In the 2013-14 season, these three, plus shout out Terrence Ross, by the way. Terrence Ross was a big part of those teams. Drafted him in 2012. In 2013-2014, this core group would lead the Toronto Raptors to their first playoff appearance in 6 years, where they would face the Brooklyn Nets stacked with Paul Pierce, Kevin Garnett, Darren Williams, Joe Johnson, and Brook Lopez, and take them to 7 games, where they lost on a heartbreaker block by Paul Pierce on Kyle Lowry, right at the buzzer. But the first playoff series in 6 years, that's not bad. I was satisfied when I watched it. The following season, we make the playoffs again, this time facing the Washington Wizards in the first round, again facing Paul Pierce, but on a different team, and it wasn't pretty. This was the year with Lou Williams on the team as well. And long story short, they swept us in the first round. It was horrible to watch. But they would come back next year, the Toronto Raptors. And it was a much different story. In the first round, we would face Paul George and the Indiana Pacers. And we beat them 7 games, thanking Solomon Hill for shooting the ball 0.2 seconds late. We then go to the second round of that playoffs and face the Miami Heat with Dwayne Wade, with Goran Dragic, Luol Deng, Joe Johnson. I think Tyler Johnson was there. Gerald Green. Again, another nail-biting series, but we would beat them in 7 as well. This is the series when Kyle Lowry hit that half-court shot in Game 1, but we still lost the game, which kind of kills the highlight, in my opinion. Every time I look back, that was one of Kyle Lowry's biggest plays as a Raptor. When you go back and look at Kyle Lowry's biggest moments as a Raptor, that one shows up, and it's always bittersweet because it's such a crazy shot, but I know we lost the game, so I'm just kind of we beat them, and then we would go on to the conference finals. The Toronto Raptors' first time seeing the NBA Eastern Conference Finals, where we faced the Cleveland Cavaliers with LeBron James, Kyrie Irving, J.R. Smith, the NBA champions of that year. And It looked bad at first. We were down 2-0 quick, 2 blowout games. We had Stephen A. Smith coming on TV talking about how bad the Raptors were, blah, blah, blah. This is the Raptors' first time also getting kind of somewhat media attention. We still didn't get much, crazily enough. But this is the first time where people were actually like, okay, the Toronto Raptors are something. Stephen A. Smith came on like, oh, the Raptors suck, blah, 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 blah. They should be lucky to be here, or something like that. Then right after those comments by Stephen A. Smith, the Raptors tied the series 2-2. Then we lose. We lost that series in 6 games. But it was a valiant effort. No one was upset at the Raptors. Now, before we continue further into the Raptors' playoff history, let's stop and evaluate DeMar DeRozan's performances in these 3 straight playoff runs. 2013-2014 against the Brooklyn Nets, DeMar DeRozan averages 23.9 points per game on 38.5% field goal shooting. That's not good. But you look, I mean, the points are good. The amount of shots it took for him to get those points, not that great. But you overlook that. It's his first playoff series. We almost won the series against a stacked starting 5. You look past it. Next year, against Washington Wizards, DeMar DeRozan only averages 20 points per game on 40% shooting from the field. From the field. This is an all-star scorer. This is our go-to scorer on the team. That was bad. That was a bad series. And then he started getting this reputation of, he's losing his touch in the playoffs. You look at 2015, 2016, where, granted, the Raptors almost made the finals. 2 games away from the finals. In this series, DeMar DeRozan still shot sub 40% from the field in this whole playoff run and only averaged 21 points per game. This is down from the 23.5 points per game he averaged during the whole regular season in that year. So we did have a great supporting cast. Kyle Lowry had a great playoff run. We had guys like Bismack Biyombo showing up for us. We kind of overlooked that one again because, again, we almost made the finals. 2016-2017. The Raptors beat the Bucks in 6 games in the first round. Then get swept by LeBron James and the Cavs in the second round. Second year of losing to the Cavs, this joke kind of started showing up on social media with LeBron to DeMar DeRozan better. But he's still not showing out. He's not doing what superstars are supposed to do in the playoffs. He's not coming through big time. Next season, Raptors beat the Wizards in 6 games in the first round. And then we lose again to guess who? LeBron and the Cavs. Sweep. Again, DeMar DeRozan. Cool playoff run. Nothing crazy. Now, for years at this point, DeMar DeRozan has been our go-to scorer. He has been the Raptors' superstar. He has been all-star with the Raptors. But it just seems like in the playoffs, something wasn't clicking with him. Now, at this point, Masai Ujiri and the Toronto Raptors front office are in a pretty tough predicament. At this point, there's 2 options. There's keeping the same team and trying again for the 6th straight year after losing 3 straight to LeBron James and the Cleveland Cavaliers, or you make some moves. On May 11th, 2018, head coach Dwayne Casey got fired and replaced with assistant coach at the time, Nick Nurse. On July 18th, 2018, Toronto Raptors traded DeMar DeRozan, Jakob Poeltl, and a future first-round pick for Kawhi Leonard and Danny Green. The initial reactions to this deal were very polarizing. Personally, I was a fan of it. DeMar DeRozan wasn't going to win us any more games. That roster showed what it could do. It peaked, in my opinion, and there's nothing more you could really do. This is the argument that LeBron went to the Lakers. Could the Raptors have done it then? You look back on it, why take the chance again when you have a guy like Kawhi Leonard on the table? Now, there's a lot of questions around Kawhi Leonard at this point. This is back after he sat out pretty much the entire season with the San Antonio Spurs and requested a trade out. And there's a bunch of drama with their medical staff and this and that. So people were like, is Kawhi Leonard really going to play with the Toronto Raptors? Not only did he play, but he played arguably the best season of his career. Now, prior to the playoffs, at the trade deadline, the Raptors used Jonas Valanciunas in a trade to acquire all-star center Marc Gasol. At this point, the Raptors lineup was looking like Kyle Lowry, Danny Green, Kawhi Leonard, Pascal Siakam, who won Most Improved Player this season, and former Defensive Player of the Year, and all-star center Marc Gasol. And coming off the bench, you got guys like Fred VanVleet, Norman Powell, Serge Ibaka. The Raptors make the playoffs and lose to the Orlando Magic in the first game and then sweep the rest of the way. Second round, you got the Philadelphia 76ers with an elite starting 5 of Ben Simmons, J.J. Redick, Jimmy Butler, Tobias Harris, and Joel Embiid. Philly takes us to 7 games where Kawhi Leonard hits the biggest shot in Toronto Raptors history, and arguably, not saying, but arguably one of the biggest shots in NBA history. At that point, Raptors fans felt like they're on cloud nine. At least I did. I was screaming. I was crying. That was the biggest moment in Toronto Raptors history. We make the conference finals for the second time in Toronto Raptors history, where we face the Milwaukee Bucks with Giannis Antetokounmpo and Chris Middleton. They get up 2-0 on us in the first two games, and when things were starting to look a little shaky for the Raptors, people started coming up clutch. Kawhi Leonard dropping 35 pieces over here. Marc Gasol killing Giannis on the defensive end over there. Kyle Lowry, big game. Danny Green hitting threes. Pascal Siakam, oh my God. At this point, the Raptors are up 3-2. Then we're going to go to Game 6, where the Toronto Raptors and the Milwaukee Bucks were going pretty back and forth. The Bucks had a decent lead on us going into the third quarter, but then one of the most important runs in Toronto Raptors history happens. Near the end of the third quarter, the Toronto Raptors were down 14 points to the Milwaukee Bucks, but then they went on a 26-3 run, spanning from the end of the third to the start of the fourth, capped off by a huge left-handed dunk by Kawhi Leonard on Giannis Antetokounmpo. This will propel the Raptors to win the game, win the series, and take on the Golden State Warriors in the NBA Finals, their first NBA Finals appearance. At this point, Kevin Durant's been out with a calf injury for a good amount of the playoffs. But the Raptors are up 3-1 in the series, and the Warriors thought they needed Kevin Durant to come back. I think they might have rushed it a little bit, and they brought him back, and not too long into the game, he ruptures his Achilles. Horrible injury, but the Raptors took advantage. They lost this game. You go into Game 6, and unfortunately, again, for Warriors fans, Klay Thompson's having one of the best performances of his career, at least in that third quarter, and he goes down with an ACL injury. In the fourth quarter of Game 6, after Klay goes out, it's back and forth. It's a tight game. But the Raptors end up winning the game in Golden State and winning the NBA Finals. Now, again, a lot of drama went down. A lot of big deals happened. And a lot of luck was involved. Now, you compare this roster to the Toronto Raptors' current roster. Let's take a look. The core of the current Toronto Raptors are Fred VanVleet, Gary Trent Jr., Scotty Barnes, OG Anunoby, and Pascal Siakam. Is this a gun for winning championship? No. Will it ever be? Probably not. Things will have to happen. And this is why predicting this kind of stuff is so difficult, because you really just don't know how everything's going to shape up. But when you look at this current roster of the Toronto Raptors, as good as I think they could be, you got to go against teams like the Philadelphia 76ers, like the Milwaukee Bucks, like the Golden State Warriors, like the Phoenix Suns. These are teams with elite players with more experience. The Toronto Raptors, their current roster is one of the least experienced in the NBA. If you take away Thad and Otto, this team has very little amount of games played relative to the rest of the NBA. So when you talk timetables, I think Scotty Barnes is going to have to be the guy for us. By the time the Toronto Raptors want to compete for a championship, Scotty Barnes will have to be there, and he will have to shape out to be one of the best players in the NBA. As good as Pascal Siakam is, he is 28 years old. I think he probably has 3-4 more years of being at the top of his game before he comes down. And realistically speaking, we don't have the pieces right now if we want to keep guys like Scotty and Pascal to find somebody better than Pascal right now. You can trade Fred, you can trade OG. You probably will not acquire a top 20 player for these kind of guys. So if we fast forward in time, let's say 5 years, Scotty Barnes is a premier player in the NBA, let's say, theoretically. This is when you start building around Scotty Barnes. Toronto Raptors had about 9 years with DeMar DeRozan, who was a generational scorer. But it never worked out, and that's when you traded him. I kind of think as Scotty Barnes as our new DeMar DeRozan, not in terms of how they play, but in terms of our guy. DeMar DeRozan was our guy for 9 years. Scotty Barnes will be our guy for the future, and it just depends on how he pans out and how we can build around him. As long as Pascal Siakam is here and he's playing the basketball of his life, I would love to build around these two, but that involves making a lot of deals, making a lot of trades, and again, it's really hard to picture a roster that's better than the current one. And not only do we have to have a premier roster, not only do we have to have an elite level of Scotty Barnes, not only do we have to still have Pascal Siakam balling by the time Scotty Barnes is nearing the top of his peak, the rest of the NBA has to be worse than the Toronto Raptors. Now, currently, the NBA has the most talented rosters we have seen for a long time. There are so many teams in contention, so many teams with a lot of valuable pieces. And a lot of the current NBA stars are very young still, with Giannis, with Embiid, with Jokic, with Booker. You have plenty of other guys coming up, Evan Mobley, Anthony Edwards, LaMelo Ball, Trae Young. These are all players who are going to be upper echelon with Scotty Barnes, hopefully. So now, after that, you got to take into consideration how much Masai can do with the current roster and how much we can do over time. As much as I want to say and sit here and say the Toronto Raptors can win an NBA championship in 3 years, it's going to be really difficult for our roster to be better than it is and to beat out teams like the Milwaukee Bucks, like the Philadelphia 76ers in the playoffs. These are teams that are built to win now. The Toronto Raptors are not meant to win now, but there are a lot of teams are also meant to win in the future. Ultimately, if I had to put a number on it, don't look for the Raptors to win a championship within the next 5 years. I think after 5 years, that's when we can reevaluate and see what's happening. Maybe after 3 years we can reevaluate, but it's going to be tough to win a championship in the next 5 years with Giannis being on top of his game, with the Warriors still being around, with Jokic getting better and better and better, with Embiid getting better, and all these other young guys building around them. Now, the reason I went back in history is because it really showed you the timetable of how much had to go on until the Raptors could win a championship. At the point they won the championship, they were around for about 24 years, 24 seasons. It wasn't until about their 20th season that they actually made their first conference finals. I'm not saying we have to fully restart and wait another 20 years to get back there. All I'm saying is that it takes time to build these things. And then when you think you have them built, you really don't. With DeMar DeRozan, Kyle Lowry, Valanciunas, Terrence Ross, we thought we had something there. And we just didn't. It was the same issue over and over and over. These things have to change. These things are so volatile, the NBA, where 1 year you're on top, and then all of a sudden you realize, man, we are stuck in this purgatory. And it's weird to call the second round, the third round purgatory, but that's where you are every single year. You got to make changes, and Masai Ujiri did that with having Kawhi Leonard offered to him and accepting the deal. And now it's not every day that a guy like Kawhi Leonard gets offered. That probably won't happen again. I don't know when the next time the Raptors are going to have somebody as good as Kawhi Leonard that season. And that's another reason why this might be tough to win another championship. We won the championship with Kawhi Leonard playing at the peak of his career. Now, if Scottie Barnes could be Kawhi Leonard as good as he is, which I don't doubt, but that's a lot to ask. And then we also have to effectively build around him. It's a lot that comes into play. Again, I'm assuming everybody here is Raptors fans. It's going to be tough. And to be realistic, again, 5 years is probably the number I put on it to reevaluate, to be closer to that goal. That's when Scottie Barnes will be in his prime. The roster is going to look way different at that point. But I think as Scottie Barnes progresses, as Pascal, Fred, and these guys get older, we're going to have to kind of reset and start building around Scottie Barnes differently, and I trust Masai to do that very well. So with that being said, don't look for the Raptors to win a championship within the next 5 years, in my opinion. Even currently they could be really close, but it's pretty stamped that no matter what happens, if we face Giannis in the playoffs, Giannis is winning. So after 3 years, Giannis is still going to be on top. But in the next 4 or 5 years, maybe that's when we can see Giannis kind of coming down, and these new guys like Scottie Barnes coming up. And I trust Masai to build around Scottie Barnes and make the best team possible within 4 and 5 years. And then I say after the 5-year mark, that's when the Raptors could make these real finals pushes and really start having legit championship aspirations. All right, that's all I got for today, everybody. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you like these kind of history videos and like future evaluation videos, prediction videos, let me know in the comments. I'll do more. I enjoy these. And follow our social medias at the RapChat Official, TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, and leave a like, leave a comment, and subscribe. I'm Elias Eldridge, and I'll see you guys later. Peace.